Will Tasmania ever get an AFL team? Well, there's a lot of arguments for them actually getting one eventually. North Melbourne currently play 3 regular season games at home in Tasmania a season. They play at the Blundstone Arena when they do play their home games in Tasmania, which is in Hobart, and that only seats 19,500, but they regularly pack it out. North Melbourne have an agreement to play there until 2022. They initially played games there in 2012, so they've been going now for a long time, and when that agreement expires, I have no doubt they will try and renew it, or they might actually move the team completely. There were rumours that North Melbourne may, with this agreement, they're testing the waters in Tasmania, they may relocate the team. The team has had a few issues off the field over recent years. There's also an argument that there's too many teams playing in Melbourne. There is 9 out of 18 teams in the AFL play in Melbourne. The NRL has the same arguments with Sydney, the AFL having the same arguments with Melbourne. Is that financially sustainable for the clubs in the league for all those teams to be in Melbourne? That's a key question. The Richmond Tigers were also interested in playing games in Tasmania until North Melbourne stepped up and signed an agreement. So there are arguments for relocating more teams out of Melbourne. They've done it with the Sydney Swans. These arguments don't go away. The NRL has the same arguments in rugby league, with Sydney being too Sydney-centric. And if the AFL wants to keep ahead of the NRL, they might want to consider relocating a team, possibly to Tasmania, quite possibly, or into the Sydney market again. We've done that before. So it's going to be interesting. There are several teams in Melbourne that have had money issues. Carlton are struggling. North Melbourne are another one. So it's not all rosy in the Melbourne area when it comes to AFL football. Some of the teams do have issues with finances and having less members than others. Also in Tasmania, it's the most popular sport in the state. Yes, cricket gets a lot of mentions in Tasmania because of Ricky Ponting and the fact that Sheffield Shield, Tasmania actually has professional sides in the Big Bash and the Sheffield Shield cricket, but it actually is the most popular sport in the state at school level and amateur level. So there is a playing base there, and many Tasmanians have gone on to the mainland to play in the AFL over the years. So there wasn't even a team in the Victoria Football League. So there is a history of Aussie rules in Tasmania. It is the most popular sport. It's played at schools, it's played at university, it's played by amateurs on the weekend. It has a playing base, it has a fan base. I have no doubt, because the sport is played in winter and cricket's played in summer, many people would happily become members of a football club or watch on TV and be tuned in. The arguments against the small population of Tasmania of only 526,700 is counting against it. But if you've got that population to tune in, because it's a winter sport, you could get the majority of that population watching on TV or going to games. You really could. It's not impossible with the right marketing. But yes, that is a small population size to sustain a professional team in the AFL. I'm not going to lie. But looking at the 9 teams in Melbourne, you divide Melbourne's population by 9, that's actually bigger. Oh yeah, Melbourne is a couple million people. You divide that population by 9, it doesn't come to 500,000. So in that sense, yes, Tasmania, I could in theory support a team, but it is on the small side for an urban population. The small stadiums at York Park in Launceston are only 21,000, and of course Blundstone Arena at 19,500. They are small by AFL standards. They're even small by the old suburban ground standards as well. So stadium standards in Australia, they're considered small by AFL standards. That could be an issue. That could also affect the corporate sponsorship. Is there enough corporate money in Tasmania to sponsor a team, get companies on board? We've seen North Melbourne have Visit Tasmania as sponsors on their jerseys, but is there enough corporate sponsorship in Tasmania itself to help sustain a team financially? And of course, the logistics. Tasmania is a fair distance away from parts of Australia. You've got the Bass Strait in between Tasmania and the state of Victoria, so there is a bit of water in the way, a bit of ocean. Melbourne is the nearest large city, hence why North Melbourne obviously have agreed to play 3 games a season there. But other cities such as Sydney, Brisbane, Perth and Adelaide are further away by plane, so the logistics of getting away fans to the games are plain for all to see. So could they sell out those stadiums? Yes, they will, but they are on the smaller side. The population size of Tasmania is counting against it. But if you divide population of Melbourne by 9. Tasmania is bigger than that. So it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see what the AFL do when this agreement with North Melbourne is up in 2022. It will be really interesting to see how they proceed, because if they want to stay as the biggest, most watched sport in Australia and keep ahead of the NRL, they might want to consider moving a team out of Melbourne into Tasmania. There is a playing base, there is a fan base. They have been taking games there since 2012 in the regular season. They've been taking pre-seasons games there as well. Fans regularly turn up. A lot of North Melbourne members are from Tasmania, so there is an interest. There's a historical interest with it being the most popular sport in the state, Aussie rules. So we shall see if at some point in the next 5-10 years that the AFL decide to put a team in Tasmania. Bear in mind, AFL is a winter sport in Australia, and of course, Tasmania is quite a temperate climate. It's quite cool. I know they take games to Alice Springs in the Northern Territory. That gets very, very, very hot. Even in winter, it's exceptionally hot, 40 degrees. Tasmania is a mild climate, which will suit AFL footy. It would suit a running game. It would suit the kicking game. It may not suit the marking side of the game and the handling, but Tasmania has a cooler climate. Be less taxing on the players. It might conduce itself to better Aussie rules. We shall see. When the Rugby Union World Cup was in Australia, they took games to York Park and sold out York Park. So it is doable that you can take a mainstream sport to Tasmania and gather interest from Tasmanians, from locals. It's whether it's sustainable with the population size and the small stadiums. That is it. But North Melbourne have proven that the agreement works, and they can keep extending it, and the local politicians and the local businesses are happy to have the AFL come in into Hobart. So it's doable. It is doable, but it will be very risky at the moment. But I can see with this agreement going on for 10 years and possibly going to be extended again, I cannot see why the AFL would go against eventually. They must eventually realise if they want to stay ahead of the NRL, they might want to move to Tas. But at the moment, the small population, the lack of corporate sponsorship, and the small stadiums are probably outweighing the pros. But we shall see. Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe. Place your thoughts below, and I'll have some more videos for you soon.